Hello and welcome, I'm your Code Monkey. In this lecture we're going to add some really nice icons on top of our plate so we can easily see what is on there. Okay, so for the icons, let's do the exact same thing that we did for the progress bar, meaning let's use a world space canvas. So let's go inside our plate kitchen object prefab, and over here let's right click, let's create a brand new canvas. Let's name this the plate icons UI. Then for the settings, let's make it world space, put it on 0, 0, everything, width and height also on 0. Then let's lift it up a little bit, so put it on a Y of 1, okay, like that. Now inside, let's define an icon. So let's start by making an empty game object. Call this just the icon template. Let's put it with a size of 0.3.3, so okay, something like that. Then inside, let's add a new UI image, name this the background. And make it stretch to fill the parent, so put 0 on everything. Okay, there's our background. For the background image, instead of a square, let's actually go with a circle. For that, Unity actually has a bunch of built-in sprites that it added in the last versions. However, it's not actually over here by default. In order to see those default sprites, we need to install the 2D sprite package. So let's quickly just go into Window, Package Manager. Let's make sure we are in the Unity registry, make sure we are looking at all. And over here, let's find the 2D sprite package. Okay, so let's install this. Okay, there's the package. So now if we go into the background and we search for a sprite, and over here, make sure you click to actually show the assets from the packages. And now we see a bunch of default hexagons, a bunch of isometric tiles, a square, so on. And if we search for a circle, yep, here we've got a bunch of circles. So let's use this one over here on this path, so let's use it. There you go, we have a nice circle. Now let's duplicate this image, and for the second one, let's name it icon. And for this one, let's assign just a random sprite, so let's say the bread. And again, remember how the sorting order on the UI, this one is based on the order in the hierarchy. So make sure that the icon is underneath the background in the hierarchy, that way it shows up on top. Okay, so we have our icon template, that's great. Of course, we're going to dynamically generate all of this through code. We're going to have multiple icons, and for positioning them, Unity actually has some really useful components. Let's select the plate icons UI, and over here let's add a component. Now for example, a built-in component is the grid layout group. This basically helps you position all of the child objects. So let's put the size of the canvas over here on 0.9.9. Okay, so there you go, a nice square window. Then over here on the settings for this, for the cell size, let's put it at 0.3.3. And if there you go, already shows up over there on the corner. And we can see what it will look like if we just duplicate this object. So let's make a bunch more templates. And if there you go, that's what it looks like. So as you can see, this component is super useful for automatically positioning all of the child objects. Now, if we want, we can play around all of these. We can add a little bit of spacing on the X or on the Y. But let's actually leave both those with 0. Let's leave everything on defaults. Just over here on the child alignment, let's put it on middle center. Okay, so there you go. That looks pretty nice. So you can see how this built-in component is super useful. There's actually two more. So this one for the grid layout, this is great when you want to put things horizontally and vertically. But if you just want horizontally, then there is the horizontal layout group. And if you just want vertically, there's the vertical layout group. So all of these components are really awesome, really useful. Okay, so with this, our objects are placed. And note how I named this an icon template. Basically, a template is just what I call something that is kind of like a prefab, but not really a prefab. Through code, we're going to duplicate this template and dynamically modify the icon. So we're going to use it very much like a prefab. We could actually make this into a proper prefab. So I could just drag it over here onto the project files and make a regular prefab. That could work. And the only reason why I prefer this method of not using a prefab is just because this object, this template, stays here on the object as opposed to cluttering over here your project files. If you have tons of single-use UI elements with tons of objects you need to spawn, you can end up with tons and tons of prefabs, and you might not even know where each of those is used. Whereas with this method, the template stays exactly where it's used and does not take an asset slot over here on the project files. So personally, this is just the approach that I prefer for spawning UI elements, but like I said, prefabs work as well, so if you prefer using prefabs, go ahead and make it. Okay, so let's make our script to run the plate icons UI. So let's go into our scripts. And on the scripts folder, let's create a brand new C# script for the plate icons UI. Over here, let's attach a script and open it. Okay, so now the first thing we need is a reference to our plate. So let's begin by making a serialized field private for the plate kitchen object for our plate kitchen object. Okay, let's save it and drag the reference. So over here, there's the plate icons. Let's just drag the plate reference. Okay, great. Now on the plate, we already made this event when an ingredient is added. So basically, we just need to listen to this in order to add the new icon. So over here on the UI, let's do, as usual, private void start. And on start, let's go into the plate kitchen object and listen to that event. And when that happens, let's spawn an icon. Although here, let's actually use a different method from the one we used on the plate visual. Over here on the plate visual, whenever we had the event, we really just modified the object that was added. So over here, the equivalent would be to spawn a new icon whenever that one was added. But instead of doing that, right now let's listen to this event, and when this happens, let's update all the icons in this display. Basically, this other method is useful when the contents can be added as well as removed. Now in this case, they are never going to be removed, so in this case, both methods work fine, but still I want to show you the second method just so you can use it when you need it. So for that method, we just need to know exactly what is on the plate. So over here on the plate kitchen object, we just need to expose the kitchen object SO list. So let's do exactly that. So public, we're going to return a list of kitchen object SO. Let's call it get kitchen object SO list. And we just return the kitchen object SO list. Okay, very simple. Then over here on the plate icons UI, let's just make a function to update the visuals. So private void, let's call it update visual. And when we have the event, let's call our update visual. Okay. So now here, let's basically just cycle through all the ingredients. So let's do a for each kitchen object SO in the plate and get the kitchen object SO list. Okay, so we're cycling through all of the ingredients on the plate. And then we want to duplicate our template. So that means we need a reference up here. So let's add a serialized field, private, type transform, call it the icon template. Okay, and let's save the code. And over here in the editor, let's drag the reference. So let's drag the icon template. By the way, I left the others over here. That's not a problem since these are going to be destroyed, those we're going to see in a little bit. The only one that matters is the first one. Okay, so here we have the icon template. So to spawn it, we do it just like we do with any prefab. So we just call instantiate, pass in the icon template, and then transform parent. So let's put it as a child of this object. This part is important. We need to make sure the object is spawned as a child of this object. If over here you put something like null, then the template won't be spawned as a global object, so it won't be somewhere in the world. So in order to make it positioned properly, let's make sure to use transform to become a child of this object. Okay, and then since we're using the other script, the grid layout group, this is already going to be automatically positioned. So just like this, it should be spawning the icon. And with the icon spawned, all that's left is really just setting the image. And now again, the quick and dirty approach would be over here when we spawn. Let's say we pick up the item transform. And over here, we could go inside and do a find in order to find the image, in order to get the component of type image and so on. So that is one approach. That would be the quick and dirty approach. But again, we want to do things properly. So let's do it the proper way instead. So instead of this, let's make a proper script that we're going to run on the icon template. So let's create a new script. So a new C# script, call it the plate icon single UI. So this one represents just a single icon. Let's go ahead and attach it to the template. So over here, let's drag it. And now when using this template method, really the only one we need to worry about is this one. The other duplicates, we can just leave them. They don't really matter. But still, just to avoid confusion, I'm actually going to delete them. So okay, we just have one icon template, okay, and it has our script. Okay, let's open. Now over here, let's basically just make a function to set a kitchen object SO. So public void, let's call set kitchen object SO. And we receive parameter of type kitchen object SO. Okay, great. So then we need to set the image. So let's just go into a serialized field, private of type image, which is inside Unity engine.ui. So for this one, for the image, we have a reference, and then we set the image.sprite, go into the kitchen object and grab the sprite. Okay, so all we need to do is drag this reference. So over here in our template, let's drag the icon image. Okay, great. So now back here on the plate icons UI, so we spawn it, that's great. Then let's do a get component in order to get our script. So the plate icon single UI, okay. And then we just call set kitchen object SO and pass in this. Okay, that's great, this is much better. Now again, you might be thinking that this method is a lot more verbose than just setting the image sprite here. We had to create another completely new script. We had to write this logic and over here get it and use it. The quick and dirty approach would indeed be quicker, but remember that while the quick and dirty approach might be faster at first, it will mess you up over time. So just take a few extra seconds to do things properly. This approach is much more scalable, Let's say, for example, on this function, you want to change not just the sprite, but also trigger some kind of spawn effect or animation. With this, it's very simple. We've got this function right here. We receive the kitchen object as so, and we can do whatever we want with it. So like this, we have this script that is responsible for anything related to the signal template. And we've got the general one, which just spawns them and just gives them the kitchen object as so. So all of our logic is nicely separated. Okay, so just like this, it should already work. However, like this, you might already be thinking, won't this spawn way too many icons? And yep, it will. Basically, every time we add an ingredient, we're updating the visual, where we're cycling through every single one and spawning all of them. So with this, we're constantly going to spawn more and more items. This is not what we want. Over here on the update visual, we do want to update and spawn all of the icons. But before we do that, we actually need to clean it up. We need to clean up the icons from the previous event. So before we do that, let's just cycle through all the children on this transform. So that's pretty simple. You can just do a for each transform child in the transform. So this way cycles through all the children, and then just call destroy on this child.gameObject. So that won't work. That won't destroy all of the previous children. However, of course, we also have one issue. The icon template itself is also a child. So if we do this, we're going to destroy the icon template, which then over here we're going to have an error because we're going to instantiate null. So we want to destroy all the children except for the template. So over here, that's pretty simple. We just check if the child equals the icon template. If so, then let's just skip it. So we can just call continue, and there you go, it skips. Okay, great. So just one more final thing. If we leave the template like this, meaning the game object is enabled, like this, the template will always be visible plus whatever ingredients we have. We don't really want the template to be visible. This is just meant to be a template that we can instantiate. So that's pretty simple to fix. Let's make a private void awake, and on awake, let's grab the icon template, grab the game object, set active into false. Okay, so now the icon template won't be disabled, so it won't be visible. And then over here, when we are instantiating, the instantiated ones will also be disabled. So let's make sure we go in there and enable these. All right, that should do it. So all of our logic should be working. There's only one more tiny thing we need to take care of. This one is a world canvas. So like we saw with the progress bar, we need extra logic to make it look towards the camera. And thankfully, we already wrote an excellent generic script to do just that. So let's go into the plate icons UI, and let's add a component, and let's add our very nice look at camera. So like this, and let's set the mode the same that we use, so let's put it camera.forward. Okay, so everything is great, everything should be perfect, so let's finally test. Let's leave the scene, save the prefab, and hit on play. Alright, so let's go pick up a plate, and there you go, there are no icons visible. Okay, that's great. Now I'm going to place a bread on top of the plate, and there you go, I've got a nice bread icon. Okay, great, now let's make some meat, cook it, and as soon as it's done, I'm going to pick it up, and there you go, I've got a bread and some meat. Now let's put some cheese, slice it, put it there, and there you go. Now I can easily see that plate has some bread, some meat, and some cheese. Now let's just add the rest of the ingredients to make a full mega burger. So let's add some tomatoes and add some nice cabbage slices. And yep, there you go, it works perfectly. So here we have a complete burger with everything, and we can easily see on the icons everything this contains. Alright, awesome! Okay, so here you'll learn how to make yet another super useful element that you can easily add to all of your games. Personally, I use this kind of logic a ton in all kinds of UI things. For example, in my upcoming Steam game, Total War Liberation, the items in the inventory, they're all added using this method. So there's a template and I duplicate that template. Same thing for all of the action buttons. All of those are based on having a template and duplicating it. It's a really easy way to do this kind of thing. With all of that, here we have a full plate and we can easily see what is on there. So with this, the next obvious step is to actually deliver some orders. So let's do that in the next lecture.